Hello, my name is Richard Miller, and welcome to Never Not Here. And this is one of our series on India, the India trip in the winter of 2008-2009. And this is really a special show because we're at AHAM, and we've done some interviews with AHAM before in North Carolina. And now we're in India, and this is the most marvelous place in Arunachala Ramana. Now I got to say, my really good friend, my guru, thanks so much for hosting us. And Ramana, you've supported this show in such a way and supported me in such a way. I've just got to acknowledge that how great it's been and what you've shown me. I come in great clouds of confusion that I used to call clarity. And I'm leaving in clarity that maybe tomorrow I'll call confusion, I don't know. But I just feel so much more grounded and so much more stable. And what you've built here, we're going to show it, because I'm going to show a few things I'm going to show a few scenes in this show. But this is kind of like a thank you show, or like, how can I thank you? I really feel great. And welcome to the show again.
Well, we've enjoyed having you here, Richard. We really have. A couple of days ago, you were stating what you had gotten since you've been here, about the insights that you're getting about being in awareness and being in the source of awareness, as opposed to being in the mind and its identification with situations in the world and teachings in general that may have some basis in the world. But I shared with you, if you'll recall, that's the very reason I invited you here, to give you the opportunity to see for yourself that the source of being, as opposed to what being is being conscious of, is more important. To be in the being that is seeing rather than what is being seen, in a manner of speaking. Huh?
You're right. That's getting so clear. But first, I just want to make some more comments about the ashram here, because it's right in the shadow of Arunachala. And really, it's in a web of connections that is actually you, who you are, these heart connections. And the people that you've introduced me to, and the fact that I can be so close to the Ramana Ashram, which really, Ramana has been a myth for me. It's kind of like a mythology back in the U.S. as far as I can see, with the friends and the people that I've known, and even the teachers that teach from Ramana. Somehow, Ramana's always remained a myth. And I would even want to get teachers to come out here and just to bask in this. When people come for satsang and they just say, wow, they walk on the property and they just feel like it's not only the gardens, it's not only the beautiful ashram, it's not only the beautiful sanctuary, it's just the feeling and the consciousness that you guys maintain here. And sometimes you do it strictly, but boy, it really pays off. And I've just been here for a couple of months, and it's made such a difference, it's just, and I've come and gone, and I think I proved that it's portable. What you've got here, you can put it in your suitcase, you've got it in your heart, and I'm going to invite everybody to come and sign up for a program and come to Tiruvannamalai and come to AHAM and see you next year. And it's kind of late to come today. I think you're going in just about 15 days or something like that.
Yes. We're leaving for home on the 9th of March this year.
It's almost like you must really miss it,
Well, this is home as well as our center in Asheboro's home. It's kind of difficult for me to determine where home is inasmuch as I live in the awareness of being. And the awareness of being is home for me. It's not so much where the body is as it is where the consciousness is focused from, or seeing everything from. And yes, the body, it's located either here at this ashram or in America, which is also an ashram, but there we call it a center because people in America are not yet that familiar with the term ashram. So our center in America is also, people tell us, has pretty much the same quality of consciousness. It's just that Arunachala being here is very strong. Its presence is very strongly felt. It's a very special place. That's the reason why we come here every year. It's the reason we bought this property and built this ashram here, is because this happens to be the roots of our teaching. Sri Bhagavan Ramana is, the term is Para Sadguru, the primal teacher of our teaching, the one who is the consciousness that underlies this teaching. And through the grace of the process of inquiry, his grace, the awakening with this one, with me, took place in 1973. I may have mentioned that, I can't remember, in the first interview, but that happened. And I just live in the awareness of being and share this awareness of being with those who are open and receptive and, as you've heard me say, ready to receive it. We don't push it on anybody, we just offer it. It's a service that we render to those who are ready and receptive to have this awakening into the pure awareness of being, the very self, the heart and core of consciousness itself prior to the mind, free of the mind, and that which is of the observer of the mind, the seer of the mind, but is not at the effect of the mind, but can now rather utilize the mind purposefully and intentionally to deal with what is occurring in the world as it needs to be dealt with, but mainly to remain free, at peace, and in the joy of the true being of the self. That's what we share. That's what our teaching is.
I got a few secrets, because I've been here such a good time. And one of the highlights, and you all can see a lot of the results of our being here. And there's been some pilgrimages while I've been here, and we've done some after-dinner filming, we call it. And this is when we really get to know you, because sometimes from the outside we think this guy's pretty gruff, he's a big guy. And maybe in the past you did have a lot of fun just with people and kidding them a little bit and provoking them really to know who they are. But I know you, and I know you're a big softie, and you're just so full of love, and I just feel it. Those table talks, you can find them on the AHAM website, which is aham.com, and also the satsang and our informal fellowship talks. Everyone, there's so much truth that flowed. We were just in a flow of a common consciousness, and this is really, really worth being a part of, the next time it ever occurs. This was what really built my my bond with AHAM and with you, and what a privilege it has been.
Well, as I've already said, it's been a joy having you, Richard. You've been a delight, and your questions in the satsang periods and times has been very helpful, very inspirational to people attending, because you seem to know well, for your own experience, your own edification, your own insight and understanding, you know what questions to ask. And those questions that you have asked has been very, very beneficial, I've observed, to people who have been attending our programs, our satsangs here. So I want to thank you for that. Been a great contribution to the satsang since you've been here. And I mean that quite genuinely. Okay.
Sometimes I guess I'm kind of personalized in this show, you know, and saying like I really want to share this message, and so I guess I'm asking some questions that maybe just for confirmation for me, but I am actually aiming some questions that might, when somebody seems to be a little bit befuddled, it might put another angle on it, because a lot of times repetition of the same teaching, we say we get it, but then I don't know, somehow in the mind, the way the mind works, it seems there's various floors, and we're down at the floor meaning like below that's unconscious, and really we're not seeing it, and that's some kind of contribution that I might have from talking to many teachers and allowing myself to do that, because
yes, you do.
If I didn't have the format of the show, I wouldn't have even allowed myself to see so many teachers, because I'd say, well, I'm not seeking, or, you know, I would probably come out arrogant. I already know, you know, I have nothing to seek. And, you know, we go through so many phases of thinking we know who we are. And really, I guess I'll just say that even from some shows, I was watching a show just a few weeks ago when I was out of town. And I just happened to have some shows on my hard disk, and I watched a show with one of my good friends that was just from June. So, all right, that's like 7 months ago, or when I watched it. And really, the way I look at who I am right now, and the way I look at the mind right now, is way, way different. You know, and I was talking about going to the edge of the mind and hanging out, and now I realize that it's a jump. You know, you just leave that context, and I realize that there's really no way that the mind will bring you to being, because I call it a verbal model. The mind is a verbal model of being, of isness, and that's all it is. It's a little model, like an engineer making a tinker toy and saying, "Look at how it works! Oh boy, you can really see with this model." And you can see some things, but there's so many things that are never going to be apparent there.
That's right. Yeah, the word consciousness, the word being is not being. Like the word water is not water. You can be thirsty, but the word water is not going to quench your thirst. It takes water to quench your thirst. So it's the real thing that counts, not the mind's imitation of the real thing. The mind is a good imitator, and it is good. Your definition of a verbal model is quite good. It may be a model, but the model in this sense is not the thing. You see, it's that which is that out of which the mind rises, and which is what gives life and power to the mind. And the mind cannot encompass that out of which it rises, that out of which it's formed. So it just can't happen. We can't do it with the mind. We have to recognize that the mind is nothing but thought, and thought is not where it is. The thought of the thing in the purity of being is not the thing. Now that can sometimes get a little bit confusing with people in our teaching when they're early in our teaching, where I talk about thoughts or things and what you think about grows when you're identified with the mind in the world. When you're identified with the body and the mind living in time and space, then that can get a little bit confusing, but that's only in the world.
Let me break in a second and say, you said what you think about grows.
Yeah.
But I mean, could it also be that what you place your attention on grows?
Yes.
And so then you can even place your attention on no thought.
Yes.
And then not necessarily that it would grow, but the experience of it would
Exactly. That's very good.
Would flower.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And these are what we in AHAM call the 7 basic truths, which I composed way back many years ago. And they're helpful to people who are starting off, you might say, on a spiritual quest where they've been looking for happiness and fulfillment from the world, believing that it can be attained in the world, that it can occur in the world. So in the early days, people in starting off sometimes need some assistance in understanding how the world works. If one can understand how consciousness works and how the mind works in the formation of the world. But ultimately, you got to get prior to the mind and how the formation of consciousness builds, or how mind forms consciousness to build the world, to fashion the world, and be free of all of that. It's just a matter of seeing it. Once you see how it works, it's okay that it works that way, but get free of it so that you're not yourself caught up in it and at the effect of it. That's the main point.
You know, in a way, I feel like it's really an advantage that your earlier life, before your awakening, you were involved in this type of these trainings that make man more effective in this world, and we just acknowledge that that's not who you are, but somehow it does build a platform where let me ask this as a question, because you know, I'm thinking that it builds a platform where you can effectively take the intention of exploring who you are. Because oftentimes we say that when somebody's just struggling for survival, probably thinking of poor people in third world countries, that there's really no time to look into who you are. You're just trying to get a meal for your kids, and maybe if it's raining, get the roof over your head. And so then some kind of a platform does seem to be necessary before you can really, is it a luxury to look at who you are? I mean, there's some sadhus around here that don't seem to have much, and they're on a path of finding who they are, but in our society, it must seem more rare. I don't know. Am I wrong about that?
Well, as it's been revealed to me, and it's been revealed to me really on the path that I was on. And what the path that I was on has brought me to is to the end of the path, no path. The pathless path, if you will. The pathless path is awakening to the source out of which the sense of I rises. Now, in a manner of speaking, it would seem that anyone can do that, because everyone knows that they exist. No one can deny that he or she exists. The question is, in identifying with who we think we are, the point, I should say, is identifying with who we think we are. In our existence and our mode of seeing ourselves as existing, we ordinarily identify with the body and take the body to be our existence. Well, it appears to be that the body is who we are, certainly with people just starting out, in a manner of speaking, on a spiritual quest, or a quest, let's say, of improving themselves, making life more pleasant than it presently is for them. Just like you were saying, shelter, food, clothing, and shelter, and how to have it if you seem to be, unfortunately, experiencing a shortage of that. So everyone, Bhagavan says, everyone desires to be happy. And what is it that makes us happy? Well, basically, these very items that we're talking about, these essentials of life, make us happy if we can have those. And then if we're having those, we tend to want to have more of those, have them more abundantly. Jesus said, I came that you might have life and you might have it more abundantly. So more of the things that we see that gives us pleasure, you see. And what it boils down to, we're looking for pleasure. We're looking for more and better and different ways to have pleasure, to have contentment and freedom and peace in our life, joy in our life. But what we don't recognize is that we're looking for it from the world as though it's to be found in the world. Well, there's pleasure to be found in the world, but not freedom and peace, not lasting, and not even lasting pleasure. Only momentarily we can find a certain quality of freedom and peace in the world and a certain quality and quantity of pleasure in the world. But it's not long-lasting. It's not dependable. Well, why is that? Because of the nature of being itself. When we do awaken to the true nature of the being that we are, we come to realize that the being that we are is not that of the body-mind, being a human being. The true being that we are, in the words of Jesus, my kingdom is not of this world. And every awakened sage in any religious culture has said that they are of the unborn. The pure awareness of being is the unborn consciousness of pure being, that which was never born. And that which was never born is the pure awareness out of which the sense of I, which is identified with the body, as though the body is who we are, living in time and space, and who we've taken ourselves to be ever since we were just small little children, and began to reason, taking me, the body, mom and dad, my family, aunts and uncles as my extended family, the community I live in, like maybe in ancient times, the tribe. And we see this evolution of consciousness outside, beyond, going beyond to a state, a city, a state, a country. And as we're identified with our country, as a large family of this country, then we defend our country against other countries. Freedom, peace, again, looking for security for ourselves as a group. You see, a group, a larger extended community, thinking that that's going to give us security, freedom, peace, joy. But it doesn't, because it just doesn't work that way. But we have not come to recognize this. Ultimately, all of us have got to come to recognize it.
In a way, it seems like we haven't come to recognize it because it's said by the sages and the religions of the world, but probably it's just taken as a belief.
Yes.
And so the belief is not going to get us to recognize it, and we've seen that that doesn't work. And so when we come back to the individual, leave the country, leave the city, leave the tribe, leave the family, and we come back to the individual, we come to Tiruvannamalai and sit at the Ramana Ashram or come to AHAM, and then the invitation is have a little curiosity and see who you are, because the testimony is that you can know.
Yes.
And so then that's when it has a chance to really work and really where you can know what is this oneness that's talked about in all these religions. And so then your invitation, I get it strong that there's no belief involved. If you say something, hey, don't believe it. Just come.
That's right.
Come and we'll show you about how you can experience it.
Investigate for yourself. Look and see for yourself. Find out for yourself. Make the inquiry into your own nature and realize for yourself what you really are, who you really are, see? See where this sense of I is originating in you, within you, you see, not outside in the world. The world, you've come to realize, does not have independent or solid, objective reality independent of our consciousness of it. The world doesn't say it exists. It is we that say the world exists. But goodness, how long it takes us to get that.
It's again the same, right? Because we've always believed it.
Yes.
So now we got a chance to experience it.
Yes.
And then that's where it's going to be effective and really meaningful.
Yes.
You know, I wanted to say, maybe this is a good time, that I remember sometimes at dinner, and you would just have a big insight, and you would say, "Oh, this is, I think, the first time I'm saying this or I'm sharing this. It's like this teaching is alive."
It is.
You know, it's coming with every opening of consciousness. More insight and more seeing can flood in, and so then, how can you believe that? You know, I mean, there's nothing fixed to say I'm going to believe in this, because all you do is open and pours in.
Exactly.
So
that's the way it works.
Yeah, that's great. I guess there's all kinds of levels of readiness, you know. That's something that's always kind of tickled my fancy, because I've thought that on hindsight, these are ideas, these are concepts, you know, but on hindsight, I said, I was ready, but somehow I wasn't ready enough to have my radar out to catch this. And then that's kind of like the motivation of the show, is to throw out some, a stream of possibilities that people can evaluate, take a look at and evaluate, and throw them out in a way that pretty neutral, that doesn't really have any belief or attachment or special groups that advocate them. In case somebody says, well, that group, I don't get along with that group, I don't necessarily like even when we talk of AHAM, and when we talk, come here and have a curiosity, we're not necessarily saying that, correct? I mean, we're saying go and check it out wherever you go, and see how it resonates for you, and see how once you're bitten by the bug, anyhow, you're going to be checking it out, because what else is there to know?
Well, we teach a very practical and functional approach to life. Like you were mentioning earlier about in the early days that I started off in self-improvement. And yes, I did. I taught personal and company effectiveness. I used to do seminars, workshops, as for groups as well as individual groups, so that people would come together as individuals. And giving a very practical and functional way to live in the world. And in those days, I used to say living in the world, but not of the world, because I had a firm spiritual belief back then, but I didn't have the depth of insight. I didn't really, back in those days, really believe that there was no happiness in the world. I really believe there was.
But the practicality that comes over is like what corporate demands: practicality. It has to work.
Yeah.
And so then your teachings now have to work. I think that's a really good grounding.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I guess you'd say that it is. And now what I share is from the realizations that I have had. In those days, it was from realizations that I had that what I taught then did work as to how to use the mind to form consciousness, form matter, if you will, into the physical equivalent of what you were holding in consciousness, and allow it to manifest into your experience, into your life, into your experience. Now it's going to the source from which all of that was coming from. How does all of that work? Because it does work. That will work. It's just that it's not lasting. It's a constant pursuit of more. And if more is not enough, better. And if better is not enough, different. And if different is not enough, more of that which is different. And that escalation of getting on the treadmill of more, better, and different, and escalating, which becomes, ultimately can become greed. It's just have to have more, because it's not fulfilling when we're constantly thinking that it's going to be fulfilling, and it's not fulfilling.
Isn't that like a conventional wisdom? In other words, society is telling us keep going, keep striving. You know, especially our pilgrim fathers, you know. They said with effort and hard work and keeping your eye on a farther goal. And it's kind of like people are convinced that that's the game. So if you've got a hand of cards, you play that game. But if your hand is bigger, you just play that game. And if your hand is huge, well, you just play that game. And then,
yes.
You know, that's not really, I mean, we've just bought into that wisdom.
Well, what we have to get, it's not the attainment that is important. It's not the achievement that is so important. It really is, it's just the joy of participating in the game.
How you play the game, right?
It's just playing the game, you see. And where the fulfillment comes from is not in the physical attainment. Yes, you want to attain up to the point and the degree that you're not living in lack and limitation. That's wonderful, and that's appropriate, and I still firmly advocate that. But when you have enough, then you have enough. You should see that there's a place in which you have enough, rather than this constant compulsion to have more, to where our whole society has come to the point that we're consuming so much of the earth's natural resources just in our greedy consumption for more and more and more, when it's not really fulfilling to begin with. The completion of recognizing the true nature of the being that we are and abiding in this pure awareness that is already complete. And here in India, you will see people, bless their hearts, who live on dirt in huts, thatched huts with dirt floors. And you see the light in their eyes and the light in their children's eyes, and a sense of peace and okayness and acceptance of where they are, and they have nothing in comparison to what in the West we have.
See, that kind of supports what I was saying, because I was saying it's a conventional wisdom in the West to just say, well, play the game of accumulation. And it must be the conventional wisdom in the East and in India to enjoy the process, and to maybe even as far as stay with your pure being, which is not even thought of necessarily until you think of it, I guess. I mean, what can I say about that? It's just not, it doesn't appear in the West too much.
It doesn't, not that much. In the West, of course, we do see what we call here in India, what we can see here in India to be poverty or non-ownership, but the people are not living in a state of poverty, or they're not living here quite like in the feeling of poverty. They live in a state of contentment even when they have very little. Whereas we can see in the West, there's not so much contentment when they have very little. There may be a sort of a toleration, maybe a resignation to the fact that one has very little, but not quite the same as you see here.
It's the West is comparing, right? We're just so into, maybe because of television or something, but we're so much into saying, you know, judging by comparison and saying, well, that guy's got more, focus on the more. Instead of, in India, they must just be focusing on what they have. It's the whole story, the old story of a teacup half full or half empty. Yes. And I'm just focusing on the empty part. And, yes. And there's only misery and suffering there. And yes. No matter where, I could be a billionaire and just say, look at the other guy, he's got 2 billion. I still have a half empty cup.
That's it.
You know, and here in India, that it's just not done that way.
Yeah.
I hope it never happens, you know, but who knows? It's kind of getting westernized around here.
Yes, I'm seeing that too, and it may be unfortunate. I hope it's not, but
on the one hand, I'm really pleased to see infrastructure going in, like highways are being built all over the place. And on the other hand, I think like, oh my gosh, you know, what happened in the US when highways got built? People got more cars and everything spread out, so you had to have cars. And it was kind of like which was the cause and which was the effect, you know? Was the roads the effect of heavy traffic and heavy densities, or was the densities the effect of the roads? And I hope they solve that problem here.
Yes. Yes.
You know, I was thinking about greed and playing this game, and somehow greed is all about treating what's good, you know, both your fame, your wealth, and your relationships as a scarcity, as a fixed thing. It's an object, and so I got to get more, you know. And if you don't look at it as an object, but it's just part of your aliveness, then I'll share this. You know, I was in a business school when I was out of town, and they were talking about what is success, and I don't remember exactly what they came up with what is successfulness and what is success. They were MBAs, so they were studying, you know, a Master of Business Administration, and bless their hearts, they're really pure and really, in a way, really dedicated to their own learning. And so then I couldn't stay quiet anymore, and I said, well, wait a second. Now you guys are all in business. Before we can determine what is success, what is business? You know, and so then, I don't know, there's a great silence, and one guy piped up and he said, well, business is filling your bank account, and family is filling your heart. And it just popped, this knowingness just popped in me, that business is actually a medium to serve. Because, you know, you're an engineer, you're a software person, you're building our roads, you know, you take the garbage out. I don't want to do any of that stuff. You know, I want to do what I'm doing. I'm doing videos now, and I don't have time to clean the streets with the garbage, or, you know, it's fun to rake the leaves and all that, but I'm not into it. But somehow there has to be a way where you guys can help me. And then hopefully there's a way where I can help you. And the whole thing of business is just a way to serve. And so then money is also a medium of service, because without the exchange, it's real hard to barter and find the right guy that can take my ears of corn and I need tomatoes. Or, you know, I need a new software program or something, you know. So then it's easy to measure success that way, because it's just like how many people you can serve. And maybe your bank account goes up by that amount too, you know, you never know. But keeping your focus on really what's true about it. And when I shared that, I don't know how they took it.
Well, I think it's quite good, yeah.
Yeah.
Here in India, there used to be the caste system. They no longer really do that. But there was the levels in which the people served the community. And that was built into the cultural way, is that there were those who were born into those roles, you might say, and lived those roles because they were born into them. But that's the way a family or anyone that was born into that system was able to serve the system, and that was their form of business, so to speak. The warrior, you see, the priest, the warrior, the business person or the merchant, you see, in that regard. And then those that were the lower caste that were the keepers of the sewage or, department and that kind of a thing. But the system in the West is just like you're saying, it's business. How do we serve one another? And when we don't go outside of our service to want to control this service, and then let's amalgamate and come together and take on this service as for more, better, and different. If we could just stay within the service that we feel inclined with towards and serve it well and be compensated well for what we're doing. We're justly compensated. It's appropriate to be compensated justly for what we do, for what we're engaged in, you see. And I used to teach in this, when I used to teach these processes, the highest wage of the universe is doing what you enjoy doing, just for the sake of doing it. And lo and behold, you get paid for it too. If you're doing what you enjoy doing and as well as getting compensated for it, that is the highest wage of the universe. That's what I used to teach years ago, and I still believe that. I still see that. I still understand that. It's awakening, however, in total fulfillment in, yes, expressing what you enjoy doing for the joy of doing it, and get your fulfillment from that which is giving to the world. The joy of giving, the joy of serving is primary to what you are receiving in the way of compensation for what you're doing. I don't know whether I'm making myself clear, but
it's clear. It's let me say this though, because I think your roots are probably, the roots of your teaching, your old time teaching, probably wouldn't be bad to revisit it, actually, for me anyhow, and for all of our viewers even. Because I would share this, that, for so many years I was thinking, the law of attraction and try to hold the correct thoughts to get something to come to you. And it just seemed so mundane, and that like all my thoughts were yesterday's thoughts anyhow, so I'm just going to bring some more yesterday. And, and the law of attraction usually stresses prosperity and health and relationships. And so I had really turned myself off to all that, And just a month ago, or even a couple of weeks ago, I think, when I came back from Pune, and I kind of liked those people there, and they wanted me to hang up some posters. And I thought, gosh, I want to hang up some posters. I want to be of service. I want to serve to what they're doing and so on. And I liked the poster too. It had a nice color, and a nice design, and stood out from the other posters, and I was real positive about that. But I noticed as I was hanging these posters up, and thinking, here I am taking this time and being of service, I was thinking that I was really a good guy. But in the meantime, there was something about the poster I didn't believe would work. I kind of had this belief that if I saw that poster, I'd like the poster, but I wouldn't really go to the training. And so each time I put a poster up, I was kind of giving it a negative blessing, like, you're a beautiful poster, too bad you won't work. And I caught myself doing that, and I imagine that, my whole life has been that way. That every time that I said, I'm doing a job that I love, and that I deserve a just compensation, and then somewhere in my unconscious was probably, and I'll never get it, because nobody will understand how good I am, or something like some crazy thing was probably knocking all my efforts down. So it's really not all that bad idea to see what kind of inner conversation you have.
Oh, yes. See what your inner dialogue is very important, that you know that your self-talk is upward progressive, and it is clearing and prospering you in what you do. Yes, that's very important. I wasn't necessarily meaning that well what I was saying. When I say in the main wage, the number one wage of the universe, simply, just simply, is to be able to do what it is you really enjoy doing. And as a matter of fact, you're being well compensated for it. And it has nothing to do with the state of mind and saying I'm not worthy. It's having to stay with, gee, look at me. I'm being able to do what I want to do, and I am the joy of being compensated for it just because I enjoy it and am doing it. And it's not so much how much am I making for it. It's just I'm being compensated. I'm being compensated well for what I'm doing. That is a high expression of life in my view. It's like the musician who's getting paid to be a musician. It's like the let's say professional golfer, let's say, that loves to play golf, and he's getting compensated for it as well, for what it, no matter what it is. Or it's the homemaker that loves being a homemaker, and her husband brings home the money, and she's taking care of him, and he's loving her in taking care of him, and she's being compensated in doing what she's being doing. To me, success is not doing something and being well compensated for it just in the world because it pays well. To me, success is the progressive realization of a worthwhile ideal. Again, the same thing. Doing what you like to do because you like to do it progressively and enjoying it well. Being efficient and effective in it. And being called upon, you see, being solicited by those around you to do it because you do it well. That to me is what success is. Okay.
That does multiply. Yeah, just to stay with the inner dialogue, one more comment. I used to believe in doing what I love to do, and somehow I had another belief that probably some universe, some God outside of me would reward me for it. In other words, I believed in magic at the time. And I totally ignored my what was really my inner dialogue. And I just let it run. Even if it ran and said, well, nobody will understand this and stuff, I just thought, I didn't give it any importance. And I just was believing in magic, the magic of some exterior God going to come and reward me. So then that was really not very prudent. What I want to ask is the inner dialogue also important when you're doing inquiry and when you're actually curious about, because we talk about setting intentions to know who you are. And then if we have an inner dialogue that I'm never going to know who I am, this is a mystery. I mean,
then you're working against yourself.
My God, and then it's just like really an uphill battle.
Yeah. It's the recognition that who we really are is the sourcing essence itself. It's just like Moses' realization is recorded in the Bible in Exodus 3:14 in all capital letters, I might say, indicating it's the most important statement in the entire Old and New Testament. I am that I am. Moses' realization that God dwells in me as me. the very being, the very consciousness that is God's consciousness, is the one consciousness that indwells all of us, and in fact is playing the role of each of us as the characters that we take ourselves to be. There's only one being that is playing all of these roles, like one ocean, expressing as all of these waves of humanity. We're the supreme being, playing the role or roles of human beings. We just don't know that. We think of that we're separate individuals apart from God, that God is apart somewhere up in the sky or wherever. God dwells in us, as us, is the very self of us, always has been, always will be. In truth, there is not now, never has been, nor will there ever be a separate individual being apart from the sourcing essence, or apart from even the world, because all that is appearing in the world is the one being appearing as everything that is being seen and experienced in the world. God is playing all of it. The props, God is the writer, the chief writer of our script, the producer, the director, and the main actor, as well as all the stand-in characters, all the props, the supreme being, playing everything, manifesting as everything. We just don't see it. We just don't know it. God dwelling in us. Now, it's not the me as an individual. Yes, in a manner of speaking, it is that too. But the me is the mind, and the mind is not seeing this. The mind is caught up in the externalized flow of consciousness onto the persons outside of ourselves, into the world that appears to have solid objective reality independent of our consciousness of it, but which does not. Again, we say the world exists. The world doesn't come to us and say, notice me, here I am the world, nor do all of the things going on in the world ever say that to us. We can say, well, some individual may say that to me. Well, but the individual couldn't say that unless there's first a me here to see the individual and hear the individual saying that. So we still pre-exist. Everything and everyone appearing in and as the world. And that's what's important to be seen and to be recognized. And that's where inquiry comes in, to follow our sense of identity, our sense of I, the personal sense of I, back to the source out of which it rises, and then merge with that source, which is just pure, simple awareness, peace, freedom, joy, without beginning and without ending. That's what's realized.
I'm wondering if we could make a distinction, and talk a little bit about non-duality. Because the way I get non-duality, which is Bhagavan, we address the source. And we talk to the source, and we talk about, if we point, we're always, whatever we say, we're pointing to the source and saying, move there, and you'll see. Whereas other teachings that create many, many distinctions are talking to the individual or to the mental apparatus. And I'm seeing, I can notice the difference so quickly. What is talking to my let's say, mental apparatus and making more and more distinctions, which in a way has taken me farther and farther away from my non-dual nature, or, you know, the non-dual nature, or the source. And so in other words, it's kind of like building more and more fences, which are all these distinctions, and then saying, after you do all these practices and understand all these distinctions, somehow you'll jump over the fence, or you'll be over there and you'll be into oneness, or you'll be into what's true about yourself, or reality. But it seems to me that it goes farther and farther and farther away.
Well, that's the mind.
Yeah.
That's still the mind. How far away are you now from the source of your being? See, you always are who you are seeking. We always already are that which we are aspiring to one day know. We are that. We can never not be that. Now, we use words like knowing it, realizing it, but who is it that needs to know it and realize it? See, there's a me there. And again, we're back into the mind when we ask the question, me. But me? Go back, go in deeper, deeper. From whence is this me, this I? Well, as you keep pursuing the quest, the inner quest of the me, the I, what occurs is you run out of mind. The mind stops, leaving only the awareness. Now, abiding in the awareness, staying present, staying poised in the stillness, in the silence of the awareness itself, the sense of I, the me, unravels. It dissolves. It merges into and as the stillness and silence of pure being. And over time, even if the mind does rise back up again, which it can do, the inclination can be there. If it does, just bring it back. Continually bring it back, because bringing it back into the stillness is into the location of peace, freedom, and joy. And it will be revealed in due time. Eventually, it will be revealed that the I is nothing more than a bundle of thoughts, the conditioned patterns that we have accumulated since our early childhood, taking to be me, taking to be the individual that we're thinking that we are, but in fact it's not who or what we are. We're the pure awareness. And when we just remain in the awareness as the awareness, this is easily known, easily seen. Not known by anyone that knows it, because it's not the mind knowing. It's nothing outside of it knowing it. There is nothing outside of it to know it. It is our being. We are it, and it is it. And as we remain in it as it, the sense of I, as I said, gradually over time disentangles itself from body-mind identification, from body identification, and we remain simply, easily, as this pure awareness. And there's no more inclination, eventually, to stray out into separation, which is suffering. Very simple.
Yeah, I love it. It's just so simple. If you guys are watching on television, go to our website and check out this show. Because, and if you're on the website, I'd say go back to when I asked that question, because what you said, I was asking, what is non-duality? And the way you answered my question, you know, I was saying, I was trying to give the example of like, going this, and you answered it, boom, just like this, non-dual, and in such a non-dual way. I think it was so clear that, that you know, any kind of a teaching that creates so many distinctions and so many things to do, and it's all just concepts and ideas and tomorrows and practices, and the one thing you said was a pointing toward what's real, what you can do, you know, you can take it as a practice, but in the meantime, it's a practice that dissolves itself. And I don't think these other practices dissolve themselves, you know. They might end in a dead end, or they might end just to, like say, well, okay, now I'm really good at this, but who am I still? I don't know.
Exactly. You got it. That's it.
Yeah. I was thinking that, you know, even with thoughts, you know, some thoughts, especially ones that feel like I got a problem and that I'm not good enough to solve it, they seem to regenerate more of the same thought and just get you into deeper and deeper and deeper, either depression or just despair, or maybe some kind of an aggression, and some other thoughts that are more or less that I can do it, I'm doing it, I'm seeing it, and, you know, backed up by what's happening too. But somehow those thoughts, just like, they dissolve. They have a tendency to dissolve themselves. And so then, I mean, you could say, okay, that's just another thought. You're just putting another log on the fire of the mind. But some thoughts, I just believe, have a tendency to dissolve, and some have a tendency to regenerate. And once you can you know, see the difference.
If you grasp the significance of inquiry, it doesn't matter how many thoughts that you have. It doesn't matter what the nature of the thought is, whether it be a big thought, a huge thought, or just a simple little thought. No matter what, follow it back. Just inquire. Who's having this thought? I'm having this thought, or it's happening to me. Now, this me, from whence is this me? Follow this me to the source within. And stay there, attending to just the source out of which this me thought, this I thought, has apparently arisen, which is necessary in order to have whatever the thought happens to be. There must be this me, this I that has a thought. Bring the thought back into the me into the I, or the I thought, and the I back into the source out of which it arises. Stay there. Keep attention, attending there, and watch the thought itself dissolve. Watch the me, or the I that has the thought, merge with the stillness and allness of being, leaving you in the peace, freedom, and joy of the self that you are and have always been, but has perhaps forgotten or overlooked due to the thinking mind that has been identified with. The body and the thinking mind, the senses of the body and the mind that one is identified with. That's the source of suffering, is thought. If you're abiding in this awareness right now in this moment.
Let's do it.
Yes.
So let's see if everyone can.
Right now, just by abiding in this awareness, look and see for yourself. Can you have a problem without thinking that you have the problem? Just look. You can't have a problem without the thought of the problem. See this, know this, and remain still and quiet in the awareness.
just by allowing the stillness. We can just do it now. We can just be still and it just doesn't seem all that difficult. You know, I don't know if I'm cheating with you here. Or being in AHAM, we're actually in the ashram. But, I mean, what can you say about the bodily experience of that? Because, I mean, I think I felt it kind of in my, I don't know, that people say the heart, you know, but I don't know if I should go and localize and just say, okay, there's a heart, you know. But, I mean, maybe it's the whole body. We have a bodily experience of being, right? As long as we have a body, we don't just throw the body out.
What we all have that is primary is our beingness, our notion, our idea, our knowing that we are. So focus on that. Focus on the fact that you exist. Now, this fact that you exist, you ask yourself, okay, I exist. What is it that exists as I? Well, you'll quickly see, if you begin to look, that your eyes and ears and nose and tongue, you see, and your skin that feels and sees and tastes and hears and touches, the five senses are not you. Eventually you begin to see also that digestion of your food, all the actions of the body, the digestion of your food, the assimilation of the food digested, your respiration, your breathing, your hands that grasp and your feet that move and take your body about. You see, the anus that excretes your fecal matter, and your genital organs that give pleasure. All of that, that's not you. See? These are objects to this being, this awareness that you are. See? Everything that you can see as an object is not you. You are that which is the seer. You're that which is prior to it. So the cognitive and conative organs are not you, you see. Well, who am I? You're not even the mind and its thoughts, you see. You're not the unconsciousness that retains all the conditioned patterns of the mind while the body is asleep. You're not that either. What are you? What am I? You ask yourself. What am I? That which remains, that which is left over after everything that you've inquired into and seen that are not me, that are not I, that which remains is just the pure awareness itself, that cognitive observer of all, sort of like a mirror that reflects everything, but itself is never etched. Nothing is attached to it, but it reflects everything perfectly. You're that. That's just an analogy. You're that pure awareness that is aware of everything, that can't see itself, but that sees everything. See? That is the self that you are. And abide in that as that. Forever.
From that question we had in last satsang, I would even say that, when you do that, just each time you notice you're not the senses, and then just drop that thought. Because if you're accumulating those thoughts, then that part of you, the accumulator, is trying to make a deduction. And when you get to the end, there's no way to jump. But each time you say, I'm not this digestion, I'm not the circulation, then just drop that and see what else is there. And then say, I'm not, these feelings. And then just let that go to zero. Always start off from net zero and then I think that really works good, that analogy.
Yes. Yes. Letting go of everything. Letting go of all the sensations. And when you let go of all of that you're not, what's left? That which is left is I am. But this is not the thought I am. It's the pure being of I am, the thoughtless, faceless, formless, pure awareness. The being itself, without any other, without any sense of other. And in this being in which there's no sense of other, that's love. That's not the thought of love, that's love. Love between two people, love of something or someone, is a secondary love. This is being. This is the love of God. So what more can be said? This is the self. This is what we all are. The I am. Thoughtless awareness.
It's getting pretty clear, you know, that everything depends on this. The whole manifest state comes up out of this, because even when we say the love between two people, and then the love of God, but it is the love of God between two people, but it's just when a couple of chinks fall out of your identification with yourself, and then that love falls through, and you see, see, it's because I got a good wife, you know. But really, it's without the love of God, how would it ever show up?
Yes.
And so then it's the same with understanding, and it's the same with just everything that has any quality to it is there already. Otherwise, we wouldn't even recognize it. It wouldn't even make a dent on us if it's not something that, I mean, when you have an enlightening experience, it's a recognition, isn't it? In other words, it's not something that comes from Mars or from outer intergalactic space and it says, I bless you with this special insight. It's a recognition of like, wow.
Direct.
That's who I am.
Direct and immediate, yes. No intermediary. Direct and immediate.
So then that sure could give logic to what else is more important than that. Because everything springs from that. Everything that we strive for, everything that we live for, everything that satisfies us is who we are.
Yes. Our own being. We're that.
I don't know, it just feels like you're so lucky, you know. So 35 years you've been just basking in this and actually sharing it. And here we've been sharing it for 2 years. And not from our own knowing either, just from your knowing as a facilitator on the show. And we feel so lucky to be doing that. And
well, if there was an individual I would have to say that it is very fortunate. I live in the awareness. As the awareness. And so fortunateness, gratitude, if you will, appreciation, just for or as being is where I live. Appreciation, gratitude, as being. Not to. Not someone that's grateful. Well, when the sense of I rises up, as it can, it's someone who's grateful.
When you know who you are, it's really not a problem for a sense of I to rise up and subside, because it rises from who you are and it subsides into who you are, and there's never a doubt, right?
Exactly.
And so that I guy is probably just a fun guy to play a game with, you know, and interact with other I's and
yeah. It is not different from the ocean out of which it arises.
So I think, I hope you've seen a lot of what AHAM is all about and what my experience has been in India, and AHAM has been really a center of it. And actually, we owe Ramana a lot of thanks for all the shows that are coming out from India, because through his invitation, this has kind of been my base. And it's not only been a base where I can park my hat and my butt, you know, it's kind of like where I parked my heart, and I just kind of let it grow and let it be open to who wanted to communicate. And actually, you know, Ramana gave me so many suggestions about who to contact and who to interview, and so you're seeing a lot of the friends here in India, and it's just a real meeting place in Tiruvannamalai. So I hope we've shown you enough of India, even in other cities, that you feel comfortable with what kind of a country this is, because even I had a concept that this is a third world country, there's a lot of suffering, everybody's hungry, and there's a lot of squalor. But that's not really the way it is, you know. It's just really been wonderful. And thanks again for your hospitality, Ramana. And it's always wonderful to talk to someone I love.
Thank you, Rich.
Given to you. What does your life speak?